You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. To keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro. What's funny, though, is that Stern actually thought that was a compliment. Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one.
Howard Stern made his name by breaking all the rules. The rebel with a mic. The man who took a sledgehammer to the establishment and laughed while doing it. But then came Greg Gutfeld, and when he took aim at the so-called king of controversy, Stern didn't bite back. No outrage. No trademark fury. Just silence, the kind that says more than any rant ever could. On live TV, Gutfeld didn't just question Stern's evolution, he cracked it wide open. The once untamed firebrand now looked more like part of the machine he used to rage against. And in that moment, Gutfeld didn't just throw a punch, he lit the fuse. What happens when the rebel becomes the ruler, and someone even louder, even bolder, comes knocking?
But that's how Stern can call snacking with celebs at a fancy restaurant exhausting. Exhausting. Like he finished the overnight shift in a coal mine. Or hearing Kat talk about her pets.
Fair.
But I get it, life is tough, especially when you've been cut off from the world for 2 years in a $20 million beach house. I mean, you have no idea how tiring it is walking all the way from the wine cellar to the tennis court and back.
Some TV moments come and go. Background noise in a world that never stops scrolling. But then there are the ones that hit like a meteor. Loud, blazing, and unforgettable. The showdown between Greg Gutfeld and Howard Stern wasn't just a segment, it was a seismic event. A cultural collision. Live and unfiltered. Two media titans from opposite worlds crashing into each other in real time. And when the smoke cleared, only one of them still looked like he belonged among the stars. Howard Stern, once the untouchable king of all media, suddenly looked like a relic of a revolution he no longer leads.
But it is incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke. It's not a chicken or egg thing there. You know what order it came. Mm-hmm. So I call this BFR. It's blackface reparations. There's nothing in Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat me last. But they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell. There's more where this came from. Once upon a time, Howard Stern wasn't just on the radio, he was the radio. A pioneer of shock, the voice that said what no one else would. He didn't follow the rules, he bulldozed them, built an empire from the wreckage, and gave a generation fed up with manners and masks something real to hold on to. Love him or loathe him, you couldn't tune him out. He was rebellion in its rawest form. But here's the thing about being a rebel king. Stay on the throne long enough, and sooner or later, the edge that made you dangerous starts to wear down. And over the years, Stern's once explosive presence has begun to shift into something quieter, tamer, and surprisingly familiar.
I will say this, Dagan. I thank God for Howard Stern because he does make me feel normal by comparison, because I'm like the fox recluse. I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere, but he makes me look like, Pete Davidson on a...
Yeah, he's a germaphobe. Like, his wife rescues cats. That's her job, apparently, her thing. But you can get toxoplasmosis.
That's true.
Cryptosporidiosis.
AIDS.
And
no, you can't.
No,
but
you can't get.
No, you can't.
But you can get.
I mean, what are the chances I get that again?
Like a lot of diarrhea related.
From brash outsider to soft-spoken celebrity confidant, Howard Stern's transformation has been nothing short of dramatic. These days, he's more polished than provocative, less firebrand, more talk show host, sipping from the same champagne flutes as the Hollywood elite he once mocked. And that is exactly where Greg Gutfeld saw his moment. A crack in the armor. A chance to strike. Say what you will about Gutfeld, and plenty do. The man knows how to turn a camera into a weapon. Equal parts political provocateur, late night, jester, and cultural wrecking ball. He's made a career out of targeting the untouchable, with razor-sharp sarcasm and a gift for satire. His nightly show isn't just commentary, it's combat. So when Howard Stern appeared in one of Gutfeld's segments, it started off almost like a throwaway line. Casual, almost respectful. But then, it shifted. That brief mention morphed into a full-blown takedown. Focused, ruthless, and precise. Gutfeld didn't just poke fun at Stern's evolution. He dissected it. Mocked the king of chaos for now preaching calm from the comfort of his penthouse perch. The rebel, it seemed, had become everything he once raged against, and Gutfeld made sure the world noticed.
On his radio show, Howard Stern defended wokeism, saying it's a compliment when someone calls him woke. Listen.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, dude, call.
And let's be clear, this wasn't some casual jab. Gutfeld didn't toss it off with a smirk and move on. He leaned in, hard. This wasn't about throwing shade, it was about shining a spotlight. In Gutfeld's framing, Howard Stern wasn't a legend. He was a warning. A living, breathing cautionary tale of what happens when the rebel trades his rage for a velvet rope. The message rang loud without ever needing to shout. Stern, once the untamed voice of rebellion, had become everything he used to tear down. And in Gutfeld's universe, that's not just disappointing, it's betrayal. The greatest sin of all, selling out, toning it down, becoming one with the machine you once swore to burn down. But there was no fire and brimstone. No yelling. Gutfeld didn't need to roar, he dissected. Carefully, methodically, like a surgeon with a scalpel. He laid old Stern and new Stern, side by side, the wild-haired anarchist who mocked elites and made censors sweat, versus the polished, carefully curated host, who now shares laughs with the very celebrities he once eviscerated. It wasn't loud, it was surgical and brutal, a quiet unraveling of a legacy built on defiance, now slipping into something dangerously close to respectability. The irony couldn't be more poetic. The man who built his empire by mocking masks now wears one. The shock jock who used to spit on the red carpet now rolls it out for himself. Gutfeld didn't need to embellish. All he had to do was hold up the mirror and let the reflection speak for itself. This was the guy who once wore defiance like armor, who made not caring a brand. But now he seemed consumed by approval. Hollywood's approval. Corporate approval. The nods and smiles of the very institutions he once mocked. And what made Gutfeld's strike cut even deeper was the context. His show isn't built on polite discourse, it runs on a reference. It laughs in the face of sacred cows and flips the table when the script gets too comfortable. So when he turned his sights on Stern, it wasn't just a clash of egos. It was a generational reckoning, one voice accusing another of abandoning the fight, of losing its soul. The punch wasn't personal. It was philosophical. And for once, Stern, the king of comebacks, the master of the takedown, had nothing. No fiery rebuttal. No mocking monologue. Just silence. A silence so loud, it echoed through the culture. Gutfeld didn't need to gloat, the moment spoke for itself. The audience felt it, they knew it. Something about it rang true. Howard Stern, the man who built his legacy calling everyone else out, had finally become the one in the hot seat. And this time, the heat stuck. Viewers watched, almost in disbelief, as Gutfeld painted a portrait of Stern, not as the rebel, but as the relic. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was cold, clinical, icy in its precision, and it hit a nerve, not just with fans, not just with critics, but with anyone who's ever watched a once revolutionary voice soften, dim, and slip into the shadows of safe relevance. In that moment, the contrast between them couldn't have been more stark. One still swinging, the other slowly fading.
But Stern being holed up in his house that long, it explains a lot of things, like how you forget how other people live, especially in hard times like a pandemic. For the longest time, 2 years in fact, the same time Stern's been AWOL, I wondered where he went. Not physically, but mentally. I bet you did too. Remember his screeds about COVID? They were epic and angry and not to mention wrong.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Come up their freedom. I want my freedom.
Stern built his legend in a time when breaking the rules had real consequences. FCC fines, network bans, sponsors pulling out in a panic. But that resistance, that's what gave him power. The more they tried to shut him up, the louder he got. He didn't just push the boundaries, he blew right through them. Gutfeld, though, came up in a different battlefield. One where censorship doesn't come from the government, it comes from the internet. From outrage mobs. From cancel culture's ever-watchful eye. He didn't have to dodge censors, he had to outwit algorithms. So he adapted. He traded shock jock antics for razor-sharp sarcasm. Swear words for satire. He didn't yell, he mocked. And in doing so, he built his own empire of irreverence, tailor-made for the meme era. In the end, the Gutfelds' clash wasn't just two egos colliding, it was a full-blown media time warp. A collision between the analog rebels of yesterday and the digital insurgents of today. Gutfeld represents the new rebellion, sleek, memeable, always one viral clip away from a cultural firestorm. Stern, he's the veteran of an older war, and audiences saw it. They felt it. It played out like a courtroom drama with no judge, just two gladiators trading blows while millions watched and quietly decided who still belonged on the throne. What made it sting even more for Stern was that Gutfeld didn't trash his past. He honored it. That was the real cut. The insult wasn't in the attack, it was in the comparison. Because once you stack up the fearless warrior Stern was against the version he's become, no takedown is needed. The contrast does all the damage.
Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candidacy is too important to joke about. This is a guy who once joked right after the Columbine massacre that the killers should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing from saying the most tasteless thing in the universe to putting your balls in a Tic Tac container. You gotta wonder what's going on here. It's striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate.
The old Stern, the one who made his name tearing down phoniness with a flamethrower, would have shredded the man he's become. That's what Gutfeld was really saying. The version of Stern, now showing up on satellite radio and late-night couches in a designer hoodie. The one trading edgy rants for soft chats with L-listers. That guy wouldn't have survived 5 minutes on the airwaves Stern once ruled. To Gutfeld, this wasn't evolution, it was erosion. Stern hadn't just changed, he'd gone from cultural sniper to something far more tame. A media monk, muzzled, manicured, and all too at ease with the system he used to set on fire. And once that image took hold, there was no unseeing it. The aftermath hit fast. Social media lit up like a fuse had been sparked. Clips, reactions, think pieces, the internet swarmed the moment from every angle. But this wasn't just another viral spat. It hit because it echoed something deeper, something unspoken. Gutfeld had finally said what a lot of former Stern fans had felt for years. That the king of rebellion had quietly abdicated his throne. And beneath it all, a bigger question lingered. Can anyone truly stay a rebel forever? Or does the world, the fame, the comfort, eventually dull the edge of even the sharpest voices?
Happy Friday, America! Oh man, tonight is a special night. It's Feminine Friday, where all the panelists are women. Tonight we have Kennedy. Yeah! David McDowell. Pat Tim. And Janine Garofalo. All right. A long way for a meat joke. Okay, I hope you had a good week. I did, and no thanks to Howard Stern. True, the New York Post reported that Stern hit a chic restaurant in NYC with a crew of A-listers, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jennifer Aniston, John Hamm, Justin Theroux, Jason Bateman. I was not invited. I guess.
Is it inevitable that every firebrand, every rebel voice, eventually becomes part of the very establishment they once set out to destroy? Or worse, do they start defending it once their seat at the table is cushioned and secure? That was the heart of Gutfeld's argument. The issue wasn't that Stern had changed. Change is human. It was how he changed, not through some profound awakening or evolved perspective, but through calculated self-preservation. The man who once claimed to fear nothing now seemed terrified of stepping on toes. The guy who mocked celebrity culture with gleeful contempt now looked desperate for its approval, and in Gutfeld's eyes, that wasn't growth, that was surrender. Ironically, it was Stern's silence in the aftermath that spoke the loudest. A man who once thrived on confrontation, who built his legend on sharp comebacks and rebuttals, suddenly vanished. No response, no fire, just quiet. And that silence, fair or not, only deepened the sting. To some, it felt like he had nothing left to say. Like the critic had finally become the target, and maybe, deep down, knew Gutfeld was right.
Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute.
For viewers who once admired Stern's fire, the silence was jarring. It wasn't just that he didn't respond, it was that he couldn't. Gutfeld threw the punch. And Stern didn't flinch. Not out of defiance, but something closer to confusion. And in an industry where control over your narrative is everything, Stern's stillness didn't feel strategic. It felt like quiet confirmation. Meanwhile, Gutfeld kept going, not gloating. Not overplaying it, just moving forward with the calm confidence of a man who knew the hit had landed. He didn't need to spike the football. The internet did it for him. Thousands of comments, retweets, reaction videos, a digital chorus echoing the same sentiment. The critique had struck a nerve, and it wasn't fading. What made it all the more compelling was who Gutfeld had chosen to confront. This wasn't some flavor of the week celebrity. This was Howard Stern, a man who invented the art of confrontation. A legend who built his empire by ripping through hypocrisy, ego, and phoniness like a buzzsaw. And now, the same sharp lens he once turned on others was pointed squarely at him. This wasn't just late-night drama. It was something deeper, a reckoning. A mirror being held up, not just to a man, but to a legacy. Because that's the curse of being a legend. Your past self becomes the standard. And when you fall short, the loudest critics aren't strangers. They're the ones who used to cheer you on.
This definition of woke, it's if you call someone a know-it-all, you're not complimenting them on the breadth of their knowledge. Yeah. You're saying you don't know as much as you think you know. So, yeah, woke doesn't have anything to do with vaccines. What it really means is sort of a slavish devotion to left-wing ideology and then repeating it so you can get social credit.
Right.
That's really what it means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're smarter than anybody. And he had said in another part of this that, because I believe in the science. Well, if you believed in the science, you wouldn't be hiding out like Howard Hughes in your mansion.
Yeah.
So
The entire exchange, direct or not, felt bigger than just two men trading shots. It felt like a scathing commentary on the media itself. A mirror held up to a crumbling industry, exposing its slow drift into irrelevance. Gutfeld's rise wasn't a fluke. It was fueled by the very spirit Stern once embodied: unfiltered humor, unapologetic defiance, and a complete disregard for polished narratives. The same traits that once made Stern dangerous now make Gutfeld relevant. As legacy media tightens its grip, weighed down by corporate caution and self-censorship, Gutfeld charges into the vacuum, loud, unfiltered, and unafraid. He's not just pushing buttons, he's feeding an audience starving for something real. The same audience Stern once fed. Back when he was real, but while Stern now leans into soft focus interviews and acceptance from the Hollywood circles he once ridiculed, Gutfeld presses forward, reckless and raw, and that's what made this moment feel seismic. It wasn't just a personality clash, it was a changing of the guard. Not about politics. Not even about fame. It was about authenticity, or at least the illusion of it. And in that moment, on live TV, Gutfeld looked like the one still telling the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. Even when it meant challenging a legend. Stern, by contrast, looked like a man trying to hold on to a reputation that no longer reflected the reality. Not fallen, but faded, a once unfiltered voice, now carefully edited.
I always hate that argument, like, what happened to the old Stern or what people have changed? That's not what this is about. It's a weird disconnect.
Well, he hasn't changed.
No.
People have been calling him insane for 40 years.
Yeah,
that just used to be, this guy's nuts. And now they're like, oh, we're worried about Howard. He needs help.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, though, I'm a little sympathetic because what you said is correct, but I'm also a germaphobe.
Yeah.
And, I just have a smaller apartment. Yeah. So it's like
Whether or not it's fair almost doesn't matter. In media, perception is reality. And now, the question lingers, what happens next? Does Howard Stern dig deep, rediscover that edge, and prove the doubters wrong? Or does he stay the course, polished, professional, and palatable, but no longer powerful? And what about Greg Gutfeld, the man who just proved he's not afraid to punch up? Has he become the new face of unfiltered commentary in a world starving for it? One thing's certain. The torch has been passed, or maybe it was ripped from Stern's hands. Either way, this wasn't just a media spat, it was a shift, a generational handoff, a reckoning for the man who once was the reckoning. And whether you love them or hate them, you felt it. You knew something had changed. Because that's what happens when the king gets called out by the court jester, and the jester suddenly looks like the one telling the truth.
Striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate. But maybe that's the explanation. This is Stern's self-imposed penance for subjugating women to demoralizing stunts, capitalizing on desperate females thirsting for attention, even if it's from an oily paddle striking their bare asses.